You talked about how you interact with a lot of people on the other side of Gamergate, the anti-Gamergate people. Did you ever change anyone's mind?
Oh, I don't want to say change anyone's mind, at least not that I'm aware of, but there was one person I had a conversation with. Now, she would have considered herself a feminist when I first started talking to her, staunch feminist at that, and it's funny, I ended up interviewing her, not dissimilar to how you're interviewing me now, and that went on for about an hour, talking about Gamergate because she was curious about what it was, and I was happy to explain sort of my perspective. By the end of that conversation, which ended up about 8 hours long, all in all, um, she would have considered herself pro Gamergate and was highly critical suddenly towards the feminist movement that she considered herself part of for many years. Um, Sort of that's my only sort of claim to fame when it comes to that field. As to whether or not I convinced anybody else, I don't know. I'd like to think I did, but I don't know for sure.
So would you consider this person or any of the other anti-Gamergate people that you talked with to be friends?
This person that I was referring to directly, yes, a close friend at this point. As to the other people, no, I wouldn't consider any of them friends, but that's more for circumstance more than anything. I would have happily been their friend. I mean, I have many friends who I disagree with politically, um, but and that just leads to me to on interesting conversation. I can be friends with anybody with any political opinion as long as they're willing to have a debate about it, and a debate in good faith. I think that's overlooked a lot of the time nowadays.
How could the Gamergate conversation have been more productive?
I think if it was actually a conversation, um, given how it happened, there was there was lots and lots of little spats going on from both sides, and very little productive going on. Such is the nature of Twitter. Um, I think it would have been a lot more productive actually if the journalists at the time that had messed up, like Nathan Grayson, had come forward and said, hands in the sky. Hey guys, I messed up. How can I do better in the future? I think a lot of people would have come forward, said, "Here's what you can do differently," and then moving forward, I think it would have been a lot more positive an experience and a more of a growing experience for everybody involved, rather than the internet shit flinging that it turned into.
You said that you got involved with Gamergate in part because of NotYourShield when you saw this happening.
Mhm.
What specifically about that moved you? Because I was talking with a friend of mine recently, an internet friend, but I think we can say a friend, Foodshops, and she said that she thought that the Not Your Shield video, obviously there were multiple videos, probably like hundreds of videos, but the one that I showed her,
Mm.
she thought it was kind of cringe to have people holding these signs and talking about their experiences as women who supported Gamergate or minorities who supported Gamergate. Like, what do you
Oh,
think that
okay.
she didn't get right?
Well, I think when it comes to cringe versus not cringe, that's a matter of personal taste. Um, what I can definitely say with regards to my own personal experience is it wasn't so much the videos that convinced me. In fact, I only saw the videos after the fact. What it was the hashtag. Um, I was just looking through the hashtag that had popped up suddenly, and I realized that if you have this many people who would consider themselves a member of a minority, be that black, woman, gay, whatever, if they feel like they have to come out just to say that they exist, Like, obviously, there's something going on. Like, they don't feel seen by whoever it is they're criticizing. Um, and that's sort of the bit that made me go, maybe this isn't just a bunch of woman hating, of gay hating, and of black people hating. You know, because like they're the people who are the woman, the gay, and the black are coming out and saying, "Hey, no, we're on this side. We're pro. We exist. Please acknowledge that we exist." Uh, that's the bit that made me go, there must be something else going on here. There must be some underlying thing that I'm not seeing, that I'm missing, that has led to this overwhelming feeling from such a large number of people to have to come out and say that they exist. Is it cringy? Yeah, a little bit, but all in all, it's for a good cause. It's at the time deemed necessary.
Do you think that some feminist gaming critics, like Anita Sarkeesian, also felt like their voice wasn't being heard?
I can see that. I can definitely see that argument. Um, the only issue with her feeling that way is that her argument was being heard. It just wasn't very good. It wasn't a strong argument. I mean, if you look at her videos, especially at the time, they had a lot of views. A lot of people watched her video. A lot of people acknowledged directly what she was saying. I mean, it became a running joke that she would upload a video and then there would be 15 to 20 other videos breaking down exactly where she was wrong. Being heard and being agreed with are two different things. She was being heard, we just didn't agree with her.
Do you think she made any good arguments?
Uh, Anita Sarkeesian, none that spring to mind. I mean, the one argument that pops out in my head as just a perfect example of her brand of analysis was, I remember she did a video on Hitman. I believe it was Absolution, and she was stating that the game encouraged you to shoot women and beat on women and kill women. In the video footage that she chose to use, it shows her killing strippers in a strip club because there is a strip club mission. It's a mature game, by the way, so you'd expect to see some adult themes in it. But anyway, I digress. She decided to shoot a bunch of women in the gameplay, and the game actively punished her for it. The game itself said, no, you're playing the game wrong. We're going to take literal points away from you for killing non-target characters. So, for her to sit there, play the game, see that pop up on the screen, and decide, well, this doesn't fit in with my narrative, so I'm going to ignore it and just focus on the argument that I want to make. I think that was disingenuous. I think that was poor, poor attitude, poor, poor mindset, and it was a perfect example of what, in my industry, we would call zebra hunting, which I don't know if people are familiar with the phrase, but to sum it up, if you're walking down the countryside and you see hoof prints in the mud, don't think of a zebra, think of a horse. Just go to the most obvious conclusion, that's probably right. She had an argument set out in her head, and she was going to bend every fact to try and make that argument more rigid and more sound, and it just didn't work. Um, I would have loved to have seen Anita Sarkeesian actually analyze games through a feminist lens, just so I could understand her arguments a bit more. But from what I saw, I was nothing but disappointed in her rationale. I'll be honest.
Would you be willing to sit down with her and have a conversation?
I would love to. I would honestly love to. I know she wouldn't. I know for a fact she wouldn't. But I'd love to go have a coffee and just sit down and go, listen, where are you coming from? Because I mean, maybe she's right. Maybe Hitman does encourage you to shoot and murder women. But from what I saw, it doesn't. It does the opposite. But maybe she saw something I didn't. And I would have loved to have had that conversation. But she is unwilling to have that conversation.
Do you think it's fair to say that she's unwilling to have that conversation when perhaps she was unwilling to have the conversation, almost a decade ago? But now we're all learning and growing as people. I'm sure she probably is too, hopefully. And maybe she'd be open to having it now.
Uh, maybe. If she is now, then I mean, hell, would love to see it, and I hope she does. The reason I'm saying she's unwilling to, I guess, yeah, as you say, she was unwilling to then. Um, and I mean, I guess the cynical part of me is thinking, well, if she wanted to, she would, and she hasn't. So, but yeah, I mean, I hope she reads this or hears this, and I hope she does. I hope she has a bit of an introspective moment, thinks about sort of her own arguments, and decides that maybe it's time for a time to stretch out the olive branch, as it were, and actually have a good conversation, have a good debate with people, where you back up your points, you back up your arguments, you use proper argumentation, and it doesn't just turn into a shit flinging contest. Because, I mean, in her videos, there must be some form of good argument there. Maybe it's the way she's presented it that it just doesn't. It seems like she's talking nonsense. But every time I watch any of her videos, either old or new, I just don't see good argumentation being made.
Some websites banned discussion of Gamergate. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I mean, on one hand, it was a movement directly criticizing them, and it was a movement that eventually ended up costing them money. I mean, they didn't want to facilitate that continuing. I mean, on a financial level, it would have been a dumb move to not try and shut it down. Um, that's why they stopped it. That's why they banned it. I understand why they would ban it. Um, just shame it didn't work though.